I ended the other one, I think, a little too fast for people, so maybe those who saw the other video will say, well, maybe I wanted to say more than just kind of cutting it off like I did, so I'm going to do that. The experience of seeing Carmen Nass in the hallway that night was around August, maybe September, maybe even October of 1973. All of the events of seeing these things and hearing these things in the house happened within maybe 6 months after we came back. So we're not talking years later all these things started happening. But I strongly believe to this day that his spirit remains in the house in College Park because that's where it all happened. I still have the lamp myself at another home, and I've never experienced these things again. And we never experienced them after that particular year, even before we moved. And 1998, on the 25th anniversary of the experience of seeing Carmen, I went up to the house with no video camera, but just a normal 110 camera that I had, because I figured I would try and go by and take pictures of the house. And I did not go on their property because I had asked them a couple of times, could I maybe see the inside of the house just once more, because we didn't really photograph anything of the rooms upstairs where we lived. And the black family that lives there was so adamant. I mean, they just went crazy thinking that I was trying to say I wanted to do something or rip them off or whatever, you know. And the saddest part about this experience was that not really my aunt, because her husband was my father's brother. He died, so she really wasn't related to me anymore, but she made accusations against me in the years after that I was not the person that she thought I was, because I was asking this family for permission to see the house once more. And we haven't spoken to each other since. And that's been not quite 20 years, but they want nothing more to do with me. So, getting back to this story, I think maybe the family themselves are experiencing things in that house and they don't want to talk about it. And that's why they took such an offense when I asked for the chance to maybe see the inside of the house again, just so that I could sense myself if Carmen is still in the house. Well, I've got photographic evidence that he is still in that house. 1998, I drove by the house in my car from the public street outside. I photographed the house from a distance of about maybe 10 yards away. And in the upstairs window, where my parents' bedroom was, there was a bathroom in the front of the house. His specter appeared in the window, and I got it on the photograph. And I have posted this photo in several places on my YouTube channel since. Some are called Haunting Continues in College Park, The Ghost in Our House. And anyway, it's been posted now on YouTube. And if anybody wants to watch it, you're more than welcome. And anyway, sorry, I'm just kind of tired tonight. The experience of seeing this entity back in 1973, I always remembered it, because when you're young, you see these things. Most people think, well, you were too young to know what you were looking at. Well, I knew I was smart enough to pinch myself on the arm, because I knew that if I could feel pain on my arm, I knew that I was not dreaming. So I look back again when I was in bed. One thing I did not have time to tell everybody in my video before was that Carmen and any ghost or specter actually can project a type of, well, what's the term? A projection of force against a person whereby you cannot move from where you are. And at 7 years old, you know children usually can move around pretty darn good. Well, when I saw his specter, I was unable to get out of that bed. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even wake up my parents. I figured I don't want them to be scared by seeing this thing. So I just kind of called out to them next to me. and they never responded. So I figured either he was projecting something that kept him from hearing me or something, but they never did wake up. And so anyway, as I tried moving, I figured, well, I can't, so I just looked back at the specter of him in the hallway, and you know, by the time I had tried waking my parents up and looked back, his specter began to slowly move down the hall. And before I knew it, he was out of my vision. I couldn't see him anymore. And so I'm just standing there. I mean, sit down. I'm laying in bed, and I'm thinking, what is this? You know, what am I seeing? Is this headlights from the window? Couldn't be, because we were on the second floor of the house, so it couldn't be that. It had to be something else. And so I continued to look until I couldn't see him anymore down the hallway, and then I fell asleep again. And I didn't ever see him again after that. I never experienced him again in the hallway. And in the years since, the only thing that I have as proof of what actually might very likely be in the house is that photograph that I took. And then I figured I would go back and look over the original photograph again, and I found two other faces. I found two faces in the front storm door that we had put on the house when we were living there. And that also is on my YouTube channel. I have blown them up because if you do it from far away, it doesn't really come out too clear. So I blew up the picture and I enhanced it as much as I could to show any and all details of the face. And there were two faces in the window, or in the door. One face is a definite human man, because he had a part of his hair down the middle, or to the right side of his head. And the other was a young child. It looked to be like a girl, because she had what I thought are pigtails. And when I saw the pictures, at first thought I was thinking, man, this thing is just too real to have been a figment of my imagination when I saw these things, because you can make out two eyes, a mouth, a nose, and there is definite color to the face. It's greenish, and the eyes appear to be whitish red. And I've posted these things since finding these photographs, and I've been watching other television shows on the Sci-Fi Channel over the years, especially on Fox Family, and they had a series called Scariest Places on Earth. And one of the most 13 haunted places in America is Myrtle's Plantation. So I finally had the chance to go on a vacation about 5 years ago, and I went to Myrtle's Plantation in St. Francisville. And that's on my channel too. And I stayed in one of the rooms, which they say there is activity, but it's not as active as some of the more expensive rooms in the house. So I decided I'll just spend the night here. I never experienced anything in the house. I did get some good photographs of some type specters in the windows. And there was some handwriting on the mirror in the bedroom itself, where they kept a clothing closet, because they had a mirror on the front of it. And all of that's on the video. It has to do with Myrtle's Plantation, if you ever have a chance to watch it. And so anyway, when we came back from Myrtle's, I never experienced anything specifically in the house here, but I've always felt like the things that we've been hearing and things that I have actually videotaped in the house since could be a young girl that lived at Myrtle's with her other sister. There were two girls that lived at Myrtle's who were killed by a slave who lived on the plantation, because she had put oleander leaves and made a form of either cyanide or curare into a cake, and anyway it killed the 2 children and the mother. And I feel like she could very likely have come back with me from Myrtle's plantation. We have had things in the house that have come off the shelves by themselves. We've had I've heard things at night that I'm not saying they're footsteps, but there's just no way to explain that they could be normal phenomena in a home, especially when there is nothing to determine that anybody else had ever lived here in this house, because it was a it was the first home they built on this in this subdivision. So it was like the model home. Everybody would come here to look at the house to see as far as what it looked like, so that then they could decide if they wanted to buy a home here. So nobody else lived on this property except us. We were the first owners to buy this house after they actually finished building all these homes. And my mother has seen a specter in the house herself. After my father died, she said, one day I was walking back to get some linens out of the linen closet, and she said right at the doorway, outside this door right here, right outside here, was a little man who was probably 5'1", had a derby hat on his head. He was short, chubby. He was standing there, and he was just looking at her. He didn't make any kind of gestures to her or nothing. He was just standing there, and she said, I looked at him for a second. I didn't feel scared, but she said then he just sort of evaporated. He disappeared out of the house, out of the hallway. And she said, I haven't never seen him again. But she don't know who he is, because who could have lived here other than possibly this whole property, if not this subdivision, could have been where somebody else died before they built these homes. I don't believe it's a cemetery that was here, because I never had heard about that, but this property could very likely have been somewhere in the past. Somebody lived here and they died, and his grave could be somewhere here. I don't know, but we've been hearing things ever since, even before my father died, and that was in 2005. When he passed away, within about a week or so after he died, the television set started coming on by itself at night, and we couldn't figure out why. I'd go to bed, she'd go to bed, and all of a sudden I'd hear it turned on again, and I was thinking, did she go back in there? She wanted to watch TV. So I'd go back in there, and there it was. Television was turned on again. So I'd go back and I'd turn it off. And then, this went on about maybe a week. Not every night, but every other night. You'd go to bed, and all of a sudden the TV would be on again. And so, I believe this was during the time my father, he had just died, and I think he very likely could still have been in the house at that time. And maybe he was just bored. Maybe he was lonely. He didn't have anybody to see or to talk to, so he turned the television back on or something. We don't have that set anymore. It's gone. We ended up having to get rid of it because it finally just died altogether. It wouldn't turn on at all. And one of the only other experiences I've had in my own experience in this house was one night. It was raining, and my mother had gone to bed, and I was coming out to use the bathroom, and it was really lightning bad outside and thundering. And when I finished washing my hands, I heard a voice in the den say, "Come in here." And I freaked out. I thought, no, this isn't real. And I thought, I'm not going in there to find out who this is, because I figured, if it's Dad, he can tell me whatever he's got to tell me later. But that's the only time I ever heard anybody in this house that it was definitely his voice. I know what he sounded like, and he actually called out to me and said, "Come in here." And I haven't heard him since, so maybe that was the one and only chance I had, which I blew it because I didn't go in to talk to him. So the program's over, so I just wanted to say thank you for letting me share my experiences